Empty homes will flood the rental market. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I have my lunchtime stein of coffee, and I thought we'd have a look at this article from realestate.com.au. It's discussing the flood of empty homes that is going to hit the rental market. Now, this may have an effect on rental prices over the next, well, I'd say several months to a year or two, particularly if our real estate or tourism industry doesn't rebound and the real estate investment industry starts taking a beating. So let's have a look at this article, everyone. So empty homes, rental vacancies tipped to rise as job losses mount. And this is showing you how one element of the economy can slowly flow through and impact others. It's not instantaneous, everyone. It's not, boom, you're going to suddenly have rents dropping across the board. There's a process. Sometimes people will negotiate and try to get a rent, and the landlord will refuse to give them a discount. So then you have to call the bluff and move. And there's a cost associated with that. You'd hate to be in the situation, this is what I was talking to Rachel about, where she was telling me people can get trapped in a situation where they don't have enough to get a new bond or to pay for the removal costs. But if rents are falling everywhere, there'll come a point when, landlords just have to capitulate or they're going to lose. So a large share of Sydney rental properties could become ghost homes left empty for months because the landlords cannot find tenants. Now, with the number of people that are negative geared, even with low interest rates, so you've got record low interest rates, everyone. For those of you that have been living in another dimension, they're at 0.25%. That's the cash rate. And the interest rates people are paying on their mortgages it's crazy low. So if you're negative gearing at that rate, if you're not even making enough money from your rent to cover your expenses, then how are you going to cop it when you're getting no rent? We read an article a few days ago where a guy he was rent vesting and he was bitching and moaning that he couldn't come up with $100 to cover his mortgage. And I did not feel sorry for him at all. I don't know why. Why does the ABC pick people like that? Are we meant to feel sorry for them? Or does it just show that maybe I'm a bit harder than the ABC journalists when it comes to people taking responsibility for their own actions? Maybe that's not politically correct these days in the socialist utopia that they all hope we will live. Oh well, I'll see you in the breadline, boys. So, housing experts said rental demand has already started to drop as the economic fallout from the illness pandemic worsens, with vacancies expected to rise sharply. So, this is because if people are losing their jobs, they're moving in with families, they're renting out rooms to other people, they're finding ways to make ends meet and save money. Because you have to. People are worried. This is why anyone who's arguing, it'll be a V-shaped recovery and property will shoot to the moon. Sure. You can hope. You can hope. Real Estate Institute of New South Wales Chief Executive Tim McKibben said the market was in uncharted waters and mounting unemployment, which made vacancies imminent. Many renters are facing job losses or reduced pay, he said. Notwithstanding the 6-month memorandum on evictions, this will likely cause more tenancies to be given up. For example, by people moving in with other family members. REI, New South Wales, monthly vacancy survey revealed March vacancies were actually lower than over February, but the result was skewed by a large drop in agent participation in the study. Well, there you go. This is the thing, guys. All of these surveys about real estate agents, they're always biased to the positive, to the good side of the news. If they've got bad news, they're just not going to say. We see that with the auction clearance rates. The Real Estate Institute said this is likely due to the disruption caused by the illness and property managers focusing on the volatile rental market. Vacancies were highest in Sydney's middle ring at 3.6%, followed by the outer ring at 3%. Only 2.5% of inner Sydney properties were vacant. Mr. McKibben said vacancy rates were almost certain to rise because properties used as short-term accommodation would become long-term rentals. And we've seen that with just the number of Airbnb properties flooding the market, particularly in Tassie. Many of these properties were rented out on sites such as Airbnb, but were not feasible as holiday rentals now that international travel was restricted. Well, here you go, 1 week free rent. 1 week is not much. 2 weeks free rent. So, what does that tell you, guys? What does that tell you? They're starting to offer free rents. What will happen is they will offer enough free rent to pretty much offset the costs of moving. So that's where there's going to be competition in the market. There'll be competition in the market, guys. And this is where everyone who says we need negative gearing to keep rents cheap. No, you don't. The problem is it's a feedback loop. Negative gearing is a tool that people can use to minimize their tax, which I'm all in favor of. We all pay too many taxes. But the prevalence of negative gearing shows you why. Is a demonstration of us paying too many taxes. So let's see, you've got this one item that you can use magically to magic away your other debts. So what happens? It goes up in price. Demand for these properties goes up in price. And then sure, the rents will be less than the price of the property. But the prices are inflated because of the increased demand, because people use it as a vehicle to minimize the excessive taxation we pay. So then the property prices go up, which squeezes younger people or first home buyers or those with less earning capacity out of the ability to buy and pushes them onto the rental market. And sure, the properties are negative geared. They're not having to pay back as much as the cost associated with borrowing it. But remember, the prices, they're inflated because of the extra demand for that product. So the rents are inflated. And then we get a situation now where most of the wealth of our civilization has been channeled into property, everyone, into property. And we wonder why our water infrastructure isn't keeping up. We wonder why they keep encouraging mass immigration into the country as a way to prop up this bubble. I'd rather, bring people into the country, but then, set up a city in the middle of the nation. You get land if you homestead it. Create opportunities to build some long-term wealth other than just string everyone along the East Coast in more denser and denser little places. But maybe that's not a politically correct opinion. But here's the thing, guys. This is the issue that we're dealing with here. So to overcome that, they're going to start offering more free rent to attract people into their properties so they can at least have someone in there to offset their loss. Because remember, these are all brilliant people, business people that are making a loss. And that's going to offset the cost of moving. We'll have to see. But think about it. If you've got a rental property, an investment property that you're making a loss on intentionally, and now you can't even get anyone there, so your losses pretty much increase significantly. You're having trouble. You've lost your job. What's going to happen? More of these properties will hit the market. SQM Research Director Louis Christopher estimated in a recent column that more than 120,000 properties were used as Airbnb and other short-term accommodation nationally. The empty short-term accommodation would increase the supply of vacant properties, Mr. Christopher said. I can't tell you how many property owners are going to switch back to long-term leasing, but there will be a number, especially if this plays out for longer, he said. Limits on international migration and travel would also increase the supply of vacant property, leading to falls in rent, Mr. Christopher said. So if you're sitting here and waiting on the sidelines to come and snap up a property and you're looking at one of these units that's going dirt cheap, always go into the basement, have a look for signs of concrete repair, concrete damage, concrete cancer, water leaking, anyway, just look for cracks everywhere. Go in the basement. Just do that. Have a look at it there. Ask people. See if you can get a copy of the original drawings. Ring up the architects and the engineers. Find out how the building was procured. Was it design and construct? If it is, call the builder. Make sure they're still running. Find out what developer or what company the developer used to set up this business. See if that's still running. See what assets that has. That may be extreme, but just look at all the issues that we've had with these bloody buildings, guys. And, you know, okay, if a developer set up a little proxy company that is worth $5, underlying demand for housing, which has been predominantly driven by net overseas migration, has now stalled for this year. And we can see this in this chart, the Foreign Investment Review Board. It shot up between 15 and 16, nearly, or definitely over 90% of building approvals for new homes or new dwellings was from overseas buyers. I mean, I don't know how anyone can see that as being sustainable. And this is where, I mean, liberal, ScoMo, all for negative gearing, all for negative gearing. And I don't blame him. Most of the politicians will be. Most people, particularly on the more conservative side, would be, because they see it as a way of reducing taxation. No one likes taxes. But remember, this is as much an intervention into the market as Labour fixing the prices of a particular good. It's just a different way about it. We need to push for our government to step back, just a little bit, step back, stop intervening and let the market have a bit more flexibility. Come on, guys. Okay, back to this. This will be a different experience to the Spanish flu of 1919, whereby population growth still expanded at a very strong rate of 1.9% due to our soldiers returning home, as well as the settling of European refugees. Realestate.com.au chief economist Nerida Konisby said rental demand was dropping, particularly for properties in large housing developments. There are still demand for family-friendly properties, she said, adding landlords would find it harder to tenant cookie-cutter style units in big buildings. Oh, well, there you go. Maybe that's justifying adding a few more rooms to this place underneath. Suburbs with vacancy rates over 5%, indicating landlords were struggling, including Kellyville, Ryde Olympic Park, I'm not surprised, and Sydney CBD, SQM research figures showed, all were areas with a high supply of new housing. Vacancy rates were at about 4% in other new housing enclaves such as Ryde, Stratfield and Mascot. Oh, wonder how many of those are in or near the Triangle of Fale. Landlords in these areas and surrounding suburbs are offering generous rental discounts or weeks of free rent to entice new tenants and stave off costly vacancies. What I would do, I would approach these people and say, yep, we'll take it, but I need you to buy me out of my other lease and to cover my cost to move over here. You can either pay me cash or you can give me free rent for 6 months. That's what I'd do. Treat it like a commercial tenancy. Apartments in a high-rise building on Gardeners Road in Mascot are being offered with the first 2 weeks of tenancy rent-free, and that's just the beginning. In Western Sydney suburbs of Toongabbie, a 4-bedroom duplex on Barrabogie Road was offered with a waiver on the first month's rent. The $650 listed rent was below the advertised 2018 rent of $775. Houses in the Pagewood Green Estate in East Gardens were being offered with 4 weeks free rent. Kingston Quarter in Meadowbank has numerous homes offered free for the first 3 weeks. So here you go. We can see that the market is starting to get hungry. There's going to be competition for people, particularly with stable, reliable incomes, to rent property. And use it to your advantage. Negotiate. You can move, and every time you move, sell junk, sell stuff you don't need. It's really quite depressing as a designer when you're designing houses and you realize how much people are paying for square meterage of built form of building to store cheap crap from IKEA. It's quite depressing, really. It's sad. Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. What is your opinion on all of this? Do you think this will affect the property market, or do you think it's going to skyrocket? It seems like the dominoes are lining up to knock over this house of cards. It's going to be a slow process, but then once it gets rolling, it'll topple. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support us, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or on Patreon. You can support us via affiliate links at Amazon or eBay, or independent reserve and Kucoin. You can send us gold using Gold Pass from the Perth Mint. You can support us via our merch from HeiseSays blog or via PayPal. Thanks everyone. Have a great day. Bye for now.